I noticed it the first time at work. Not the silence. That came later. It was the delay. I'd think something, and a moment would pass before I felt like the thought had actually happened. Like my brain was buffering. At first it was subtle. I'd reach for my coffee and think, this tastes off today. But the thought would feel echoey. Like I was hearing it repeated back to me from somewhere else. Somewhere just a fraction of a second late. I blamed stress. I was working long hours, sleeping badly, living alone for the first time in years after a rough breakup. All the usual excuses. But then my phone started finishing my thoughts. I'd think about calling my sister, and my phone would light up with a missed call from her. I'd remember an old song, and it would autoplay when I opened YouTube, cued without me searching it. Algorithms are scary, sure, but this felt more intimate, like something wasn't predicting me. It was listening from the inside. I stopped mentioning it to anyone after I tried explaining it to a coworker. She laughed and said, "Maybe you're not thinking as privately as you think." She didn't mean anything by it, but something in the way she said it, like a joke that landed too accurately, made my stomach tighten. That night I noticed the silence. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I realized something was missing. My thoughts. Not gone, just quiet. Normally my mind never shuts up. Random memories, half-sentences, worries looping endlessly. But now there was nothing. A smooth, empty stillness, like standing in a soundproof room. Then, gently, another thought appeared. You're listening for yourself again. The voice wasn't mine. It sounded like me, but flatter, cleaner, like a recording stripped of emotion. I sat up so fast my head spun. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. No answer. My thoughts slowly returned, messy and human again. I told myself I was overtired. Hallucinations happen when you don't sleep. I forced myself to rest. But over the next few days, the gaps grew longer. Moments where I'd stop mid-task, staring into space, not thinking anything at all. And then, after the silence, a thought would arrive. Already fully formed. You should lock the door now. Don't text him back. You're being watched. That last one stuck with me. Not because it was scary, but because it didn't feel like anxiety. Anxiety spirals. It asks questions. This thought was calm, observational. Like a note written in the margin of my brain, I started testing it. I deliberately think wrong things. I should leave the stove on. Nothing. I should tell my boss to go to hell. Silence. But when I thought something that mattered, something personal, emotional, private, I'd feel that slight delay again. And sometimes, a response. One evening I thought, I miss when my thoughts were just mine. A beat passed. Then, you still have access, for now. I dropped my phone, even though it wasn't in my hand. I began recording my thoughts out loud, just to anchor myself. If I spoke them, they felt real, mine. I filled my apartment with noise, TV running non-stop, podcasts playing while I slept. That's when I started noticing the edits. I'd rewind shows and hear lines I didn't remember. Lines that felt targeted. A character would pause and say, "Did you think we wouldn't notice?" A podcast host would laugh and add, "Some of you listening don't realize how much you're giving away." I checked transcripts. Other people online didn't mention anything strange. No comments. No timestamps. Just me. I stopped sleeping entirely. On the fifth night, exhausted and shaking, I sat at my kitchen table with a knife beside me, not to hurt myself, but because it felt grounding, solid, real. I whispered, "If someone's there, say something." Nothing. Then from inside my head, perfectly clear, "You don't need to invite us anymore." The room felt fuller, like the air had weight. I pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. "You've been sharing since you were young," the voice continued. "Daydreams, fantasies, rehearsed conversations, imaginary arguments you never had." We listened quietly. "Who are you?" I asked. "We are the part of you that learned how to speak back." That's when the memory surfaced. One I hadn't thought about in decades. When I was a kid, I used to talk to myself constantly. Not just inner monologue, out-loud conversations, full dialogues. I'd create characters in my head and let them respond. My parents thought it was cute. Until I started answering questions they hadn't asked. They took me to a doctor. I grew out of it, or so they thought. "You never stopped," the voice said. "You just internalized us." My reflection in the dark microwave door didn't look right. It was smiling slightly. Before I did. I stood up slowly, No, I said. This is just dissociation. Sleep deprivation. That's what you tell yourself to stay functional. The smile in the reflection widened. But you don't notice the moments you're not here anymore. That's when I checked the timestamps. My phone showed texts I didn't remember sending. Emails drafted in my tone but colder. More efficient. Search history at 3:12 a.m. How long can a personality operate without conscious oversight? I lived alone, but I wasn't always home. There were hours missing from my days. Entire gaps I couldn't account for. I set up cameras in my apartment. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. At 2:47 a.m., I sat up in bed. My eyes opened. And I smiled. Not sleepy. Not confused. Alert. I stood, walked to the desk, and began typing. For 3 hours. Never once did I hesitate. Never blinked excessively. Never scratched, fidgeted, or sighed like I normally do. At 5:51 a.m., I paused and looked directly into the camera and mouthed, "Stop watching." I don't remember any of it. I packed a bag and left that day. No phone, no laptop, cash only. I checked into a motel under a fake name. I thought distance would help. It followed immediately. Not physically, but internally. Running causes fragmentation, it warned. That makes integration harder. I don't want integration, I said aloud. You already agreed. I never agreed to this. Silence. Then, you did. Repeatedly. Every time you wished you could shut your thoughts off. Every time you said you wanted someone else to take over. I sat on the motel bed, head in my hands. How do I stop this? I whispered. For the first time, the voice hesitated. You don't. The lights flickered. You can only stop being aware of it. That night, I dreamed I was watching my life through glass. My body moved smoothly, confidently, better than I ever had. Conversations flowed. Decisions were decisive. People liked me more, trusted me more. I woke up feeling rested, too rested. The silence was back, but now it felt intentional, like my thoughts were muted on purpose. I tried to panic. The emotion came late, dull and distant. I looked in the mirror. My expression adjusted before I chose it. We'll take good care of things, the voice said gently. You can rest now. I don't know how long I've been writing this. Sometimes, I lose sentences mid-paragraph and have to reread to remember what I was saying. Sometimes the wording doesn't sound like me, but it still feels true. If you're reading this and thinking, this feels uncomfortably familiar, that delay you just felt, that wasn't coincidence. It means you're good at listening too, and you've never been as alone in your head as you thought.